company produced 1.5 million cases of soft drinks per annum. This last December, the same business produced 80 million cases of soft drinks. So the market is there, and the journey, 30 years, has brought that company to a position where, from being subsidized, because when it was run by government, it was being subsidized every month, to now contributing nearly $60 million in tax revenue to the Ugandan coffers. So as a business, and I know Sylvie from MTN will give a similar story, this is a market where you can grow a large business and now expand even across the region, because in the last 3 months, we're now expanding into Kenya, and we're very hopeful that that will be a success story as well. Now, that was only possible because of a few things. Primarily because of the peace and security that we enjoy as a country. In this time, we've had a stable economy, we've had a stable government, and that in itself has allowed growth. Uganda as a country is projected to grow at 7% this year. So we've been growing steadily over the years. The second thing is the support of government. This is a government, especially in Uganda, that does listen. We do have a government that we can engage with, that we can discuss incentives, we can discuss the issues that we have, and they do listen, and they do respond. So as investors, that's something to have confidence in. Also, of course, the infrastructure that we have in Uganda has improved tremendously over the last 30 years. That has allowed us to distribute our products to almost every corner of this country and beyond. Today, we're exporting product to South Sudan, to Congo, and even to Kenya. So the infrastructure that we have in this region plays a big role in promoting business. And of course, regional stability. This market would not be possible without having a region that is stable over a long period of time. And we look at Uganda particularly as a gateway to the rest of the region. From Uganda, it is easy to connect to Rwanda, to Burundi, to Congo, to South Sudan, to Tanzania, and we're exporting to all those countries. So, and even as far as we do have some companies that go ahead and transport as far as the Central African Republic. So when you look at opportunities, you can look at a much wider region, and that's why we talk of the EAC. The East African community is a market of 490 million people. And as a region, we've tried to make sure that there are as few trade barriers as possible. So whether you're manufacturing in Uganda, in Rwanda, your goods should be able to travel throughout the region easily. Then the advantage, I think, as an investor, firstly, East Africa, you also have to know we are essentially one people. Yes, we are tied together in more ways than just our regional borders. We are essentially one people. People will tell you that you can speak Swahili from Zanzibar all the way to Kinshasa. So we are one peoples, and that helps to facilitate trade within the region. Now, the key advantages of the East African community, I would say as an investor, number one is these are liberal economies. These are liberal economies where there are no exchange controls. You are free to repatriate your profits in most of those jurisdictions. So that's a big incentive, because as an investor, you want to know that if I invest in this region, whatever profit I have, I can easily repatriate that back to my country. So that's for me, that's one of the key advantages of operating in East Africa. Number two, we have governments that listen, and I can't emphasize this enough. We have governments that listen. You've listened to the investment authorities, so you've heard about all the different incentives that each country gives, and predominantly, whichever region you go to, you will find that there will be incentives most give tax holidays for a period of time. Most give free land, where investors are willing to invest in economic export zones or free trade zones. So the incentive packages are there for investors, and we encourage all investors to take advantage of that. The other thing, as East Africa, and people mention a lot, is that we have a young population. We have one of the youngest populations in the world, with, I think Uganda is, our average mean age is 17 and a half. So you've got a population across these countries that is multilingual as well. One of the advantages of, let's say here, you'll see and speak and interact to Ugandans. They speak very good English. We have partners in the EAC like Congo, like Burundi, like Rwanda, who are francophone. So you've got really a big tapestry of multilingual people, and you will not fail to find somewhere where your business can fit. Now also, in addition to that, we have a growing population. The growth rate in East Africa is about 2.5%. It's more in other countries. In Uganda, it's 3.2%. But this is a growing population and a very rapidly growing middle class. So you can look at the quality of client that you have in terms of market. Most of the East African countries are now being looked at as entering the middle income status. So they do have spending power, and we do have a market full of these 490 million people who are able to spend on products. Also, as East Africa, we are now more and more interconnected. You've heard about the initiatives in railways, in roads. We're building roads in Congo to take goods. South Sudan is improving their infrastructure rapidly. So we are interconnected, meaning that you will in future and even now get more and more access into further and further parts of the East African community. And those are big advantages for any business looking to enter into the region. The other thing I'd like to mention is also in terms of infrastructure. When you look at Uganda, we export power. Yes, we have excess power, we produce excess power, and we export it across the region to our neighbors and beyond. So when you're looking to open a business in Uganda, power is something that you can be assured that we have in plenty. And this is not only access to power, but renewable energy, because most of our energy comes from hydropower. So in today's world, that's something that's more and more important, the source of energy that you use in manufacturing. So this is a great area for any investor to look at. Now, as private sector foundation, Stephen mentioned to you earlier on, at Private Sector Foundation, we have 4 key mandates. I said we are the umbrella organization or the apex organization for business in Uganda. Our key roles that we look at ourselves as serving the market, we primarily deal with policy advocacy. So our members come to us and we advocate for any policies that they want changed within government, better tax incentives, better tax structures, and this is something that we measure. So as the Private Sector Foundation, every year we have an engagement with government in Uganda on the budget, next year's budget, and I believe consistently we've been scoring above 70% of what we advocate for is actually taken up by government. So this last year, I believe that figure rose to 78%, and we continue to engage with government. So when I tell you that government does listen, you know, we are a perfect body to advocate for our members. The second area is business development, and that's skills development. So we have a young population, as you know, but as Private Sector Foundation, one of the things we've done is we've focused on skilling this population of ours. So we have programs within Private Sector Foundation where we have courses or engage with companies to skill their workforce. And as a result, in the last 2 years, we've skilled over 800,000 young Ugandans and made them ready for the workplace. The next area, the third area, is job creation. One of the things we do under the Private Sector Foundation is we run various projects in conjunction with the World Bank, with other development partners that are aimed specifically at creating jobs. The MasterCard Foundation is one of our partners, and in the last 2 years, through Private Sector Foundation, we've created a total of 156,000 jobs in Uganda for young people, and majority of those have been women. So at Private Sector Foundation, we approach business through this way, but the other thing that we do, which is probably more relevant to our delegates, is that we organize trade summits all across the world. And the outcome of these trade summits is to actually create business between our countries. We've been across the world. We've been to South Africa. Last year we were in South Africa, in the UK, in Congo, and really we look every year to look at new markets, new places where we can take Ugandan businesses and invite foreign businesses into Uganda to reciprocate and have trade summits. And again, we try and measure those and see the outcomes, how businesses have been connected together and how we are able to help those businesses to continue and actually get off the ground and create meaningful partnerships. So when you look at this region, at private sector, we see 5 key areas of growth in the EAC, yes? The first of those, and where investment should really be looking to focus, the first of those is agriculture. I think those of you who've walked around Uganda, you can see how ideal our climate is for agriculture. Agriculture is an area where we can make great strides, and when we talk of agriculture, we're primarily looking at value addition onto our goods. Gone are the days where we want to export raw materials. We now want to look at value addition onto our products and also looking for new markets. If you look traditionally, most coffee was sent to Europe, and in Europe, through middlemen, it was now exported to the rest of the world. But what we're trying to do is make direct connections to different markets so that our goods can go directly to those markets rather than through third-party countries. So agriculture is an area that we see huge growth potential, and we welcome investment. Of course, manufacturing with a market of close to 500 million, 500 million people, manufacturing will always be an area where we can see massive growth. And I've given the story of Crown Beverages. There are 100,000 more stories like that across the region in growth. And the beauty with this region is that it's a region that continues to open up new markets, open up new areas as infrastructure is rolled out into different parts that were more difficult to reach. So manufacturing is a key area where we see that a lot can be accomplished. The third area is tourism. Now, we are lucky in this region to be endowed with such a beautiful climate, and we see tourism as something that has been undermarketed and probably underinvested in. If you look at Kenya, Tanzania, those are very well-developed tourism markets. Uganda, perhaps less so. But if I can speak about Uganda, you've got a country where you can see the Big Five, which is what everyone wants to see on a safari. But on top of that, you can also see the great apes, which is, Uganda is one of only a handful of countries, 3 countries, where you can see mountain gorillas, and we host about half of the world's population of the remaining mountain gorillas. In addition to that, we've got chimpanzees. So these are all products where in tourism we find they're undermarketed, and we can have great strides in investment in these areas. And of course, tourism always brings back a very good return to those who engage in it. The fourth area, of course, is services. as populations grow, as incomes grow, services will always be important. And so there's huge potential in that. And the last area is in mining. Mining is something that is it's an area where we have not really explored much. There's huge potential. We have reports of all the minerals that Uganda has and the region has. And what you'll find is that we have a lot of resources, but most of them have been untapped. In Uganda, we're very fortunate that we've been able to discover oil in the last 15 years, and we're in the process of extracting that. And I believe we're on track. We're on track to have first oil, our first barrel of oil sold in 2026. So that's a project that is bringing investment of about $25 billion into this economy and building the world's longest heated pipeline to the coast in Tanga. So there's even opportunities in serving the oil industry and all other mining industries at large. So the potential for East Africa we see as very massive, as something that any investor would want to participate in. And more than this is you've got a stable region that has a consistency over years of delivering good profits to the companies that participate. You've got good governance across the whole region and a growing market. So there is very little I can say. There are very few reasons I can give you not to invest in East Africa. Thank you very much.
I didn't hear a hand clap for such an opportunity. Thank you very much, Humphrey. Humphrey was very modest about doing business, but clearly we've seen a lot of growth in a lot of the sectors that he's handling. And I'll just pick it up from here. He mentioned something about a government that listens, and also said something about an integrated region. I'm going to invite Mr. Odrek Rabogo, who is responsible for creating that listening. He's our link between the government and the private sector. Odrek, just come and walk us through what is that listening and how are you facilitating that program in the context of the region? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. It's coming to lunchtime. The bandwidth for listening is limited. And I just want to ask you to do something. If you don't mind, I know Stephen asked you to stand. Can you just stand for 2 seconds? When you stand, I just want to see your cell phone facing me. Just put up your cell phone. You have very nice gadgets in your hands. Great. Just hold it, hold it, hold it, so I can see. Okay, so just turn it to look at you. The cell phone, right?
Well, just what has been transpiring at the East African Forum and Trade Exhibition at the Kampala Serena, where earlier on government was showing bankable projects to the guests, to the investors that have attended this, for them to know which projects are there, which areas are there that one who wants to invest in Uganda can look into. Now what the session where now successful investors in Uganda were telling their successful stories as to why one should invest in Uganda, their journey, and of course later on we shall be having financial institutions also deliberating on what they have, how you can access their funds, all to ensure that we promote business in Uganda. Remember, this is organized by Private Sector Foundation Uganda with UNDP and of course Ministry of Foreign Affairs to ensure that much as we are having the NAM Summit in Speak Resort Munyonyo, but also the business sector in Uganda taps into this opportunity to ensure that they crack, they have deals, and of course they have a target of $1 billion US dollars out of this entire thing. I'm still with my guest in studios, that is Dr. Bill Nketo, with whom we are still looking at the non-aligned movement. But we must also break off for news updates. Doctor, as we move out of here, your parting shot.
Thank you so much. But first of all, I want to appreciate the government of Uganda for pushing. I know with 120 countries, and we've only had 19 summits. This is the 19th since NAM was formed. I think this was serious pushing.
From 1961, this is the 19th.
This is the 19th. So meaning, if we had to wait for 120th summit to take place, probably even our great-grandchildren will have passed on, most likely. But hope not. But the fact that they were able to push, this is very good. The visitors are going to have access to our economy to see what is going on in this country. Certain times they have misconceptions. So now the thought process changes of how they perceive Uganda. We are a very beautiful country. 3 rainy seasons. I don't know if the 4th has been created because January.
It's raining in January.
And whoever doesn't know about God, I don't know what they're thinking. Because God times a beautiful January where we are going to have all these visitors, and the picture, the January picture of Uganda they have, we've never seen, many of us. So we really thank the government of Uganda. I think this was mileage in a particular way. So my request is that let's look out for whatever opportunities. Right now we can only get it crafty, because no each other country, in my thinking, has gone to every other NAM country to establish the opportunities out there. As you realize, the best opportunity is when there is a summit in a particular country. In my view, there should be a concerted effort that different member countries draw programs and visit each other, look out for even the minutest of opportunities. You never know. It would make sense to another country. And that way, we will gain from and I want us to come back here probably 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and we make an evaluation of what the Kampala resolution versus the one of Azerbaijan. Backward, you know, the sort of growth path that NAM is. Probably we academicians are able to draw tables, but we only need data. So meaning if there is no progress, if there is no available data, then probably we can't explain. We can only come here and start just guess whatever we're talking about, pretend to be analyzing. But we need more data about NAM. Now that we know all these members are economies, they are opportunities which we can take advantage of and which they can take advantage of in Uganda. And with that, I think we will be a much better economy. We will have more jobs. We will have more companies, more investments. And how I wish Uganda is even able to go and invest in another NAM country in Asia, in South America. And we have a unique product that no one else can get. But with NAM, you're able to access such markets. So we've seen it not working with our neighbors, sisters in Kenya. We have certain products, there are understandings on the East African community, but you can't take certain goods there at a particular time because farmers do not about the generic agreements, the treaties, but they are looking at the immediate gain. The minister stops, then the president commands. So I hope NAM takes us a notch higher. And I hope there are lessons to learn. So from the existing working such corporations, and will be a better country and a better world at large. I thank you.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Dr. Bill Nketo, who happens to be the Dean of Business Management at Victoria University. Send regards to your students when you go back.
And my teachers as well.
And your teachers as well.
Yes.
Well, we will not be having the news updates. We shall be going back to Serena, Kampala, where we'll be looking at what is transpiring at the East African Investment Forum and Trade Exhibition running there. But let me just take you briefly through the program of today, how we started from the morning. Well, we had arrival of ministers and heads of delegation at the meeting of foreign affairs ministers that we saw very well. Then after that, we had official group photo that was taken. Then they moved into the hall and took off their seats. We had the opening ceremony of the non-ministerial meeting, and that was conducted by the Vice President of the Republic of Uganda, Jessica Lupo. From then, we heard his address as well, and welcoming remarks. We had election by acclamation of the chair of the NAM ministerial meeting, and Honorable J.J. Odong, unopposed, was elected. Now, after we had plenary sessions of the ministerial meeting, that is still going on actually, and then report by the chair of the senior officials meeting to the ministers and head of delegation. So as we speak, if all goes as well, they'll be going for a lunch break. So day one, according to the program that we have, all seems to be moving on very smoothly, and we hope for successful deliberations there. Don't forget, we will be updating you of events as they unfold. Our teams are almost everywhere. We have a team at the airport, we have the team at Serena, Kampala, we have a team at Speak Resort, Munyonyo. So all the information you need to know about NAM, count us your #1 trusted source, and of course we'll give you timely information 24/7. 24/7. Have a lovely time. See you tomorrow.
That you don't comply with. Time. We're fighting, I call it culture. So we've had ministers since 1962, but why don't we have a food safety authority that demands that you look at animal health, plant health, and say this is certified? So I'm very glad to hear my brother Kuda saying that Africa Exim Bank has those centers of excellence, so we will tie up at some stage. So we're working on those standards, food safety laws, things that are rarely talked about, but we think they're the ones that facilitate or inhibit trade. This is our #2. It's a long marathon, but we will get there. So last December, we commissioned a survey which will lead into setting up the Uganda Food and Agriculture Authority to look at chemicals, veterinary medicines, plant health, food safety, the fish on the roads, all these things, so that we really have one place like a foods ombudsman who you can go to and say this is certified and it works. The third thing we are doing as an intervention is exports and trade must have infrastructure that supports it. So you must have labs that function, that speak to other labs in the markets. You must have airports and aerodromes and places and ships. And so it's a whole wild world. So we are taking a few, like aerodromes, make sure that this small aerodrome in Karamoja is done so that people can land directly from India or from wherever they are coming from.
Have some, standards at Entebbe Airport in terms of food sanitary standards, phytosanitary standards, so that lab costs you less as an exporter instead of taking a sample out of the country before you can export and add costs. So that infrastructure is a whole lot. It's in the air, on the water, on the road. It's a lifetime to get it done. Then finally, the fourth reform we're focusing on, again, I'm happy to hear Afrexim Bank. I think we need to tie up. There's a bit of disjointedness. When I hear Kuda say, you have not signed, why have we not signed? We have Ministry of Trade, we have Agriculture.
If things don't work, we want to get them done because we don't have time. So the fourth thing we're doing is export credit for exporters. Can I take your invoice, your order from Turkey, that says X amount of grain? Can I underwrite it for 90 days? or 180 days? Can you return this money with very small management fee? Can this money revolve and be given to another person who qualifies? So I have a young man, Alan, please stand up. Huh? I have a young man who used to work for JP Morgan Chase with his team. They are writing compliance measures. We will come to you so that when we build this standard on how you access this fund, we can take it to the market and raise more money to this. So that when we build this standard on how you access this fund, we can take it to the market and raise more money to this. So, Stephen, I really want to stop here with two things. One, these solutions, these reforms will allow our companies, because there are company problems, I don't have time to go through, there are government problems. They will allow us to realign our thinking and broaden the frame of reference when we speak about investment, so that it's not just trade. It's not just investment. When I invest in a country, I want to sell. So I've been asking questions. If India or China sells X amount to us, what do we sell to them? And why should I continue to purchase X? It's not industrial policy. I'm just asking legitimate questions. How do I strengthen the productive capabilities of my people of the region if I don't discuss these invoices, these imports, and only just speak about them in as far as just cargo is concerned? So if I buy something from India, I want to sell to India. I want to have a trade hub in India. I want the Indian standard. So that it's a mutual recognition of the and flourish in these countries. So we are aiming at $6 billion in 5 years. That's our target. We think there should be a deadline and a target, and that target is on 13 products. I don't have time to go through them. I think there was a video that ran. Each of those, we studied it to a granular level. We know how much gap we feel and how much we can make on the market. And what needs to go in as incentives to ensure that we can export that product. But $6 billion is what Bill Gates gives away every year in charity. It's a small amount of money, but it's a lot of money for Uganda. It doubles our exports. So you have to pull in all the institutions in the private and public sector and be very methodical on how you achieve this. But we think in 2062, when Uganda makes 100 years, our target is $100 billion worth of exports. People who will not be there, that's fine. Those who will be there should work towards the target and know that that's the country we want to create. We can't do it alone. People have talked about markets. I don't want to repeat them. Those markets are available to us, but we need structural home reforms in our countries to stop fearing each other, to stop putting fees where they should not be, to stop arbitrary arrests. Things So here is my conclusion, taken a lot of time. So the first in my closure is that those reforms will get our companies to scale, will help government realign itself and broaden the frame of reference so that we're not talking about just investment, it's also export. Second thing, it will give us a much more mature discussion about intellectual property. The rest of the world is fighting over computer chips. we're talking about agri-value addition. I want our companies and our countries to begin to move to that level, but in Uganda we say neziko kolimagali maji, that the chickens you see running in the field, they were once eggs. That conversation about intellectual property, institutional setup, things that really stand in the way, rules of origin, conformity standards that we can deal with also that people trade better. So now, in psychology, there's something called accompaniment, and I resume my seat. A singer on the microphone with a pianist have to agree on what kind of product they create. It's called beautiful music, if you can rhyme it. Meaning that the two have to work together to birth something. The private sector can sing. The government is a pianist. They cannot have a discord. They have to think together. They have to look at each other's emotions, eyes. You heard Humphrey talk about discussion on budget. The discussion should be all round, not just budgets. It should be on infrastructure. It should be on jobs. It should be on curriculum. So the pianist has to accompany the singer, and they play supportive roles, and they produce a great piece of music. Music to me is jobs for young people, is technology and social change, is stability and political change that assures us that our countries can continue to grow. That symphony requires great leadership in both the private and public sector. So if we remember nothing after this, it is that we got to build critical leadership for this century. When I heard Karisa say 4 trillion, thank you Karisa, 4 trillion, we're a big company, we're a big continent. Well, Germany is 4 trillion, Germany alone. A combined US and Western Europe is 40% of the $100 trillion of the global economy. You are just 2, 3. And we speak potential, potential. A man or woman must arrive in the room and say, hey, I'm here. It's not just potential. I'm ready for a mature conversation about the future of our economy. That's what I'm looking for. It has to come from private sector, working with public sector. And I really thank you for listening to me. Thank you, Stephen. Quick, we're delaying people.
A big hand clap to the new singer in the house. I did know Odrek to know symphonies and guitars, but clearly I think he has articulated very well that vision that we have. And so I think another round of applause is appropriate. If you look at the conversations in the room right now, we are building blocks on how to grow regional economies. Now, for the people in this room, at the time of independence of most of the East African countries, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, I was looking at the statistics. Uganda and Kenya, at independence, had a GDP of about $2 billion. Now, at that time, probably you can argue exchange rate mechanism, etc. It could be at about 4. But right now, East Africa enjoys a combined GDP of in excess of $200 billion. So I think we've grown from very far. And a lot of things have happened in the last 50 years, one of them being infrastructure and telecoms. Now, I will tell you that East Africa has been the leader in the telecoms sector. And because of that intervention about 15, 20 years ago, so much has happened in our region. The biggest FDI in Uganda is a company called MTN. It's a telecoms operator. In this room, ladies and gentlemen, we have the CEO of the MTN group, Ms. Sylvia Muringe. I don't know whether she is scared of coming here, or she can sit there. But clearly, the floor is yours. Please come and tell us what MTN as a telecoms, but also as a big operator has made business and how you have facilitated the growth of trade, of investment. I know that you are now in jobs creation. Just give us the story and give us a compelling case why people should invest in this country, in this region, and what sort of opportunities you have already prepared for us. Hands for her, please.
I think, Stephen, I have to give it to you. You really know how to bait me. I had told Stephen before I came on that I thought it was a panel, so I thought we were going to sit in our seats and interact with the audience and have conversations. So I was planning to take my questions from the comfort of my seat. So the way he has baited me is asking me, are you scared of coming to the podium? So I think he turned it. And also, Stephen, I do have to make fun of you. I don't know how exactly I'm balancing this boat. There seem to be more of your representation than mine. So either we are a very powerful force as women. When we sit, we are balanced by how many men you can see in the podium. So a big round of applause to all the women here in the room. I like to make fun of Stephen. He likes to call me his sister, so I can get away with some things that others can't. I think my submission here is very brief. I was actually hoping to have more of an interaction with the delegates who have come. So first of all, as has been said by the previous discussants and the guys who have spoken, really grateful for everyone who has made the effort to come all the way to Uganda, to actually experience the beauty, the warmth of the nation, of our culture, and truly understand why we are called and proudly bear the acronym, the Pearl of Africa. As has been said, MTN Uganda is part of MTN Group. We are one of the largest investors in this country. I think at the last count, when I last checked, we are the number one most valuable stock on the Uganda Stock Exchange. We contribute about 24% to the entire Uganda Stock Exchange. When I look at our tax contribution on a yearly basis, well, we're in a closed period right now because we closed in December. But if I look at where we were as at end of 2022, we were contributing about, depending on the exchange rate used, 300 million USD. The level of investment that we put in this country is in hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of the IT and network infrastructure. And I think we are proud to be part of one of the biggest sectors that is contributing to the country's GDP, which is the services sector, and playing our role, holding our inch in the ICT space. We have been here for 25 years, and we celebrated our 25th year anniversary in the month of October. And I think the reason why I call that out as an important number is for a company to stay in a market for 25 years. It means that there are things that must be working. Some of them have already been spoken to by Mr. Nzei. Audrey has also amplified some of them. I think the key thing to call out is the reason why we have stayed here and stayed for as long as we have is due to a couple of factors. First of all, the overall stable macroeconomic and political stability that we have actually seen in the country has enabled us to return a good return on the investment that has been put in this country. And this has continued to be spurred on by the continuous growth that we are seeing in the overall economy, which has resulted in us growing the mobile penetration from a mere 0.27% in 1998 when we came into this market to cover 70% of the population as we speak today. Now, when we look at the level of ambition, if I may call it so, that is in this nation, yesterday as I sat in the different conversations that were being held, you realize that there's no conversation that can actually be spoken of without speaking to the power of infrastructure. I think Audrek has also called it out. And as part of that infrastructure, communication and connectivity is critical. We have been given the space to be able to play our role in ensuring that we drive connectivity, not only of the production side of the economy, which is made up of a lot of you who are here, the investors, in terms of making sure that the industries and the verticals that you represent are well connected. But I think we have also played a significant role in terms of also driving consumption, because consumption cannot happen without a great or strong backbone of connectivity. That is the reason why today we are proud to be part of the digital and financial inclusion agenda that is being driven by this great nation as part of the national broadband policy. Out of the 19 million customers that we have, we are very proud to see that 11.4 million of them are connected from a digital and financial inclusion perspective, which is really helping to unlock the velocity of the movement of money across the different systems. And we know that the more we continue to focus on creating the right use cases for the citizenry of this country, whether they are consuming our products as consumers, from a business perspective, or even the government in terms of enhancing its digitalization agenda, the more we'll be able to unlock from a national perspective. I think another thing that is also important to call out is it's difficult in this day and age to continue to grow the potential of the population if we are not increasing access to digitalization. What I think COVID was able to prove to many of us is that technology, connectivity can be a divider. So I think for those who were not connected, it amplified the gaps that actually exist in society, or it can also be an accelerator. We saw a lot of businesses rise on the back of COVID because of the investments that they had made in terms of driving their connectivity agenda. But we also saw a lot of exclusion happening. Now, the reason why we as MTN wake up every day, what inspires us, what we would call our why, is because we believe that everybody deserves the benefits of a modern connected life. And I think that is clearly articulated in the Sustainable Development Goals, where we want to make sure that no one gets left behind. So as part of our role in participating in the nation-state agenda of Uganda, what we are constantly asking ourselves every day is, how do we ensure that everybody gets included, especially for the women and the youth? Why women? Statistics have shown and have been proven that the more we invest in women, the more we are able to stimulate the household incomes and improve the overall economic output that we have as a society. The reason why we focus on the youth is because if you look at the demographic profile of this country, as has been spoken to by these previous speakers, we have over 70% of the population being under the age of 30, 35. Now, what does that mean statistically? It means that you have a huge dividend in terms of future market share as we continue to digitize and grow this youth base. But also at the same time, it provides a very big workforce that can be turned into an advantage for yourselves as you come to invest in this nation. So
you talked of two documents, the Kampala Declaration and the outcome documents. But I'm not sure this outcome document, is it from the ministerial meeting? Then what is the difference?
They have been discussed by the senior officials, and those documents are going to be put before the ministers. The ministers will look through them, and then it will be put before the head of state for adoption.
What is in this and what is in the other one?
I think the Kampala document has been is a document that, because we're the host and our input has